All right, and I'll pass it over to you, Christina.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the Board of Behavioral Sciences board meeting. Today is October 4th, 2021, and the time now is 1:04 p.m. This meeting is conducted via the WebEx format due to the executive uh, the executive order by the governor back in March 2020. So at this time, Christina, would you please help us develop a quorum?
Good afternoon. Christina Wong,
Here.
Deborah Brown,
Here.
Yvette Casares Willis,
I'm here.
Susan Friedman,
Here.
Christopher Jones,
Here.
Kelly Ranasinghe,
Here.
Wendy Strack.
Here.
For the record, Max Desposti, Crystal Anthony, Ross Ehrlich, Diana Herwick, John Sovek are absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So we will be moving to the next agenda item, which is the public comments. It's the public comments not on the agenda. And so moderator, would you please open the Q&A and then see if we have any public comments?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go in the order that comments are received, and once you are unmuted, you'll be given 1 minute to speak. At this time, I'll go ahead and pause to allow the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests.
Doesn't look like we have any hand raised or request to comment, huh?
Yeah, at this point, would you like me to close? Oh, I apologize. We do have one individual who has requested public comment.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Leanna Escamilla. One moment while I find you in my attendee list. All right, Leanna, I'm going to request to unmute your microphone. You'll be given 1 minute to speak. When that prompt comes up, please click unmute me. And Leanna, you'll want to click that unmute me button when the prompt comes up on your device. All right, and you are unmuted.
Shoot. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I became an AMFT in January, and I'm going to be up for renewal this January. And I was wondering, do I need to do my law and ethics again? I took a test, or I did my online back in December, and I'm wondering, do I need to repeat that, or do I need to actually physically go in and take another test, or do I just renew? Because I'm trying to get ahead of the game. I know it's October, but any guidance would be beneficial. I've sent some emails, but I know you guys are just swamped. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I encourage you to reach out to our executive officer, Steve Sodergren, and maybe he can direct you, and maybe he can also give you some more concrete answers. Thank you so much, Leanna. And the moderator, do we have another public comments?
Yes, 1 second. I'm sending that person Steve's email address. Okay.
Thank you so much, Sam. Yes.
Thank you. So our next person is identified as Ariella. Ariella, please click that unmute me button when the prompt comes up. All right, and you are unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Ariella.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks so much for letting me comment. My name is Ariella Leifer, and I'm a recent graduate of the Wright Institute. My program ended on August 31st. I'm dialing into the board meeting to share the incredible impact that the long processing time of associate members is having for myself, as well as others from the Wright Institute. 5 of us, including myself, received postgraduate fellowships at Kaiser Permanente. The fellowship officially started on September 13th. However, Kaiser is giving us until October 25th to receive our associate numbers. I sent in my application on the first day possible on September 1st. And the first day possible that I was able to, and I'm eagerly tracking the processing times at the rate that the numbers are being processed. Both myself and the 4 others are at high risk of losing our fellowship positions at Kaiser.
All right, and we will move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Delenn. All right, please click that unmute me button when the prompt comes up on your screen. All right, and you are unmuted. You'll be given 1 minute to speak.
Thank you. And I am a clinical supervisor, and I have 2 supervisees, and I'm in private practice, and I'm just would like to request that the Board of Behavioral Sciences continue with the ability to do telehealth type supervision face-to-face via electronic means for supervisees who may never get the vaccine due to their choices, but at the same time are seeing clients really well, doing a wonderful job, specializing. I specialize in eating disorders. My supervisee is working in that same specialization, so much needed, but and does a great job via telehealth. So I just would
15
encourage
seconds.
the Board of Behavioral Sciences to please continue that option for private practice supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Forrester. Anybody else?
It appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. So, thanks everybody, who gave the comment, and I'm sure that, that Steve, if you want to follow up on some of the public comments, and, I can probably invite, people to come to our telehealth committee. Our last committee meeting was just on Friday. And please stay tuned, with the opportunities for the public to join and to express their interest, and so, so that would be really beneficial, for you to be part of our process, to shape our, regulation process. And so I actually did fail to ask the board members if there's any comments that are not on the agenda. I see handshake, and Wendy, go ahead.
Just wondering if at the next opportunity, or maybe that's, I don't know, I can't remember if that's part of today, but if Steve could give an update on processing times. And I know we had some challenges with some changes in fees and application processes in December, January, and the effects of that have lingered a bit, but just wondering if we can get an update on that.
Yes, thank you, Wendy. And so any other public comments not on the agenda? I don't see any. So the next one is the items. Let's see. The next one is the suggestion for future agenda items. So I think we can certainly take, Wendy as one of that, suggestion. And I think, certainly, Steve will include that in in his executive officer report. And so the processing time, all of the, a lot of the data, will be actually shared, consistently quarterly. So that would be a really good time, for you all as board members to take a look at that and then also give feedbacks. So any other suggestion for future agenda items? This is really for the board members, to bring up anything that you would like to be put in the agenda next time. Kelly?
So, Christina, this
Yes.
is Kelly. I would just ask that we could add to the November board meeting an agenda item for recognition for National Adoption Month, specifically in relation to our child welfare clinicians.
Okay. So Steve, that's certainly something that for your consideration, and you can discuss with the board chair, and then see if that would be something that you can put on the agenda. Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Kelly. Anything else? I don't see any. And so I believe that I don't need to seek public comment for this one, right? Where are you, Sabina?
I'm here. You can ask for future agenda items from the public.
Okay, all right, then let's open the Q&A panel and ask for the, any suggestion for the future agenda items.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment for future agenda items, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. And if you're connected by audio only, please click *3 to raise your hand. We'll go in the order that comments are received, and once you're unmuted, you'll be given 1 minute to speak. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, seeing no hands raised or requests in the Q&A, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. All right. So thank you so much, Sarah. And so I think our next item is the strategic planning session for the board's 2022 to 2026 strategic plan. And so I just want to remind everybody that we would love for this meeting to close at 3 o'clock. And so time is in essence. So, worthy people like me should not be allowed to speak too much. So I'm going to pass it on, to, let's see, for the, I think it's, Solid, to lead us for this discussion.
Yeah, it'd be Sarah.
Yes.
Yep, we're wearing multiple hats today, both moderators and facilitators.
And that's right, it's Sarah.
All right. So my co-facilitator Elizabeth, she'll be getting that PowerPoint slide up in just a moment. There we go. Yay. And if I remember correctly, everyone here was on the last strategic planning session that we had back in September, correct? All right. Do I need to go over any refresh anything, or shall we just go ahead and jump right into our legislation regulation?
I see Deb's jump hand. Okay. So let's dive.
All right. All right. In that case, we'll go ahead and just go ahead and jump right into legislation regulation. And we have some suggested objectives that were created by the board management. And I'm going to go one by one in the order that they're listed. If there's any comments on the first one, please either raise your hand or speak up. And then once we're satisfied with that, we'll just move on to the next one. So our first one here, give you a moment to read it over. If you have any comments or edits that you want to make, go ahead and hit that raise hand button. All right, I'm not seeing any raised hands, at least in WebEx. Does that mean we're okay moving on to that second one?
Can you give me 1 second? I just found that slide, so,
No worries.
okay.
All right, and I see a hand raised from Deborah Brown.
Yeah, I'm the one that keeps saying, make sure we can measure things, make sure we can measure things. And so on number 4, are we purposely saying the word modernize so that maybe this question is more for Stephen? Are we leaving that broad? Because this is like a 6-year program, or what, 4-year, 6-year strategic plan. And so I don't know that we can operationally define modernize. Is that why? That seems like a very vague word to use for clarifying statutes. Does someone want to tell me why maybe that's the word that was used?
Yeah, I think we were talking about modernizing. Maybe we should just say clarify statutes and regulations related to advertising. We were talking about modernizing because we wanted to take into effect all the different formats where people can actually advertise today and what advertising is. So on the web, on, possibly websites or through whatever electronic medium, we need to look at how we want people to advertise now. It's a little bit different than the past where it's a business card. It's a lot different now.
Okay, so what I'm asking you is, do you believe that this word gives you the flexibility that you would need given the many years, and we know how technology moves. It's like in light years. We're already behind whatever today is that's coming out tomorrow. So, and we think about where we were when we built this just a few years ago, where we were before, and it was a lot of your direction that we went and started doing and modernizing BBS. So is that the word you would like to stay with because you think it gives you more latitude for what we might not know is coming down the pike?
So I think maybe a good suggestion, we can wordsmith that, but I'm thinking maybe we would clarify statutes and regulation related to advertising to ensure, keeping up with current advertising practices to that effect. So.
Okay. The reason I ask you this.
Instead of modernizing.
Okay. The reason I ask you this is because you're the one that's held account for all this. Mm-hmm. And you don't want your evaluation to show up and the board wasn't able to come to a conclusion, or even worse, we're all out there independently coming up with our version of what modernize means. And we can't actually, the question that was asked, we didn't really get to answer because we weren't all collectively doing that when we're filling out your evaluation, to be honest. So I would think
I would like to just jump in real quick.
Okay.
Steve's evaluation won't be credited towards the strategic plan. The strategic plan is going to be more of like a guiding document for the board. I just wanted to get that out there.
Sarah, if I can interrupt, it is absolutely directly to the strategic plan. And that's why I've been bringing that up, is his evaluation is absolutely connected. And so that's why I keep asking for clarification now. The board can go a different way, and that's why I said this at the very beginning. If the board doesn't like the way that the board has has done prior, but it is, I know that maybe for other boards, it's just a guiding light. But for this particular board, the evaluation is what you see on the screen. So that's why I keep saying, can we measure it? And that's why I keep having Stephen back in here, because the board before, and this is why it's unfortunate we're not meeting in person, because Stephen could show people the prior evaluation, and in the prior not minutes, but in the prior meetings, the board members right now can go back and see where Stephen and prior to them, Kim updated every single meeting where we were, and in front of us is this strategic plan. And next to each one of those bullet points, 1 through 5 numbers, the executive officer remarks on what has been done after the executive officer has sat down with their staff and decided when it's reasonable that they think something like this can be accomplished. And so it is our guiding light.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Hi.
That's what.
So I agree with everything that Deborah said, but I actually did like the word modernize. Simply because the term modernize it was directly attached to the idea that in the last 5 years, there's been an explosion of multi-platform advertising and sort of grouping these clinicians into one group and then having that group use social media as a platform to shoot out multi-state practice. So that's the only thing I was saying. I agree with everything Deborah said, but the term modernize or like update, something like that, like that's temporally influenced, kind of should go in number 4. But again, wordsmithing's totally fine with me.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the rest of you guys are the ones that are going to be implementing this, right? The not me, and Stephen. And so I just want to make sure, and that's why Kelly, you keep hearing me say, "Can we measure it? Can we measure it?" Because we as a board decided, and you as the new board may not like this, and you may say it's all wrong, but we don't believe that we should evaluate someone when someone doesn't have input, and you've got to, if you're going to measure something, it's got to be measurable. And it's not fair to the executive officer and the staff if it's so vague that, you know what I mean? It's got to be vague enough so that you can have some wiggle room, but not so.
I apologize. I have a couple hands raised. If I could
Okay.
let them speak, 'cause since we are on a time limit, I want to make sure. I do have a hand raised from my co-facilitator Elizabeth, and then I also have a hand raised from Roseanne.
This is Roseanne. Do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, let's go ahead, Roseanne.
Okay. I think that the term modernize is appropriate here because when we look at our specific advertising regulations, they are very out of date and that they're basically designed to reflect an actual ad or a business card. And they do not address things like social media, like Instagram and Twitter, which have people like to advertise or have a separate advertise or page for their business, which gives their credentials, and they oftentimes only have a limit of a certain number of characters, and so the law right now does not address that at all. So I think when we say modernize, we mean that some sort of amendments to the advertising guidelines to reflect those newer types of platforms. Whereas right now, I think that the measurability would be have we brought back some sort of proposal that would address some of the newer platforms on which our licensees and registrants are advertising. So that was the purpose of that word. And in terms of whether that's measurable or not, I think it is because we either do it or we don't in some form. Right now, the law just is silent on it. That's all.
This is Elizabeth, co-facilitator. Can you hear me, facilitator?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize about that earlier. I believe my microphone wasn't working. What I was going to jump in and say, I was going to comment on Sarah's comment regarding the strategic plan. I think what Sarah was trying to say, yes, we definitely encourage the strategic plan, each objective to be measurable for the sake of completing the objective in a successful way. Also, it is a plan that gives direction to the executive team, to management, to staff, give clear guidance and direction. What exactly do you want your staff to do? And we encourage the strategic plan to be used as the guidance to accomplish your mission and your mandate, which is consumer protection. You may use the document to evaluate the executive officer, but we do recommend that you keep in mind what is the specific mandate, the mission, what are you trying to accomplish, and try to reflect that in your objectives. Definitely keep that at the forefront. We are not discouraging you if you want to evaluate or do evaluate your executive officer in that manner. But again, consumer protection at the forefront. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So, I think, from the licensee point of view, and also just to look at the content point of view, I think that definitely, that's, the advertisement practice, it's definitely very obsolete, and I hate to also admit the fact that, I think a lot of the people, they don't follow it just because it's so, it's very cumbersome. So, that's just my observation. I'm not saying that is a fact, but I think, that modernized to me, is it's a way to, just really look at what really is the, past practice, what is the old practice. So I think, in that sense, that we want to bring it up to date. And so, so I think the area wise, whether advertisement, I think that is the most important content for me for that goal. I think it's very appropriate. Modernize, I think it's always, when you look at, like Roseanne said, because it's just so old, we want to make it up to date. I think it's one word. And so the most important thing is to really to get it up to date so that, we can have some practice that is actually be able to adopt by the current licensees and the associates. So I think it's fine with me, and I totally understand where Deb's, concerned, because that was, one of the very unique practice, utilizing the strategic plan to, as one of the evaluation tool for the EO. And so, I really appreciate, that Deb wants to just make it loud and clear that was the practice, and we have a group of new board members, and so I just want to echo that that really is one of that. My understanding is that that's Deb's intention, just wanting to make sure that that part of the tradition is being listened and respected. So I also want to come back to my feedback with the with the goals. So just very quickly, so for number one, it's about telehealth, and it looks like it's just very broad. It's just so broad because, I think in the last telehealth committee meeting, we talk about, just their different things. So I wonder from the board members' point of view, are you guys okay to leave it just as broad? Telehealth, telehealth including, there's just so much, to, should we focusing more on some area or just anything in relating to telehealth that you're all okay? It's just so broad. Steve, go ahead. And then Wendy.
Just really quick to kind of capitalize on what Deb and Christina, you were saying. When I was looking at these objectives going through, believe me, I was wanting to use these as a guiding post for the board to kind of rate what we're doing. So I'm looking at these, and I know there's the actual tasks behind those. I understand them. So I think for me, when we look at these, I think we can actually, or I'll definitely have things to measure within these, especially with one. It is quite broad, but I don't know how you can actually focus and put a statement. There's too much to talk about in telehealth. I don't know how you would refine that particularly. But in everyone, just to make sure you guys know that I was looking at these and definitely think I can find measurable deliverables that will match up to these objectives. So.
Okay. No, yeah, Steve, if you think that this is the broader, would actually, help the staff and the board to, to accomplish at least some of them, because we know that we have exciting news to share at the next PNA meeting and stuff like that. So that's fine with me. I just want to bring it up. And then I want to come back to the second one, that the second objectives, when we're talking about registration, exam, and supervised experience timeframe. So what are we talking about? Are we talking about like, what is that?
In the licensing committee, one of the things that we were looking at, and this is for objective or kind of a licensing committee. So we're looking at timeframes for like the six-year rule, looking at different types of statutes and regs that affect associates, and kind of visiting those. We already are active in that licensing committee, and we have a couple tasks that are already there. But that's what we were focusing on for kind of the licensing committee. Looking at that.
Perfect. I think the explanation is really, really helpful. Now, and then for number 3, I have some suggestion wording wise. So will that be clearer, to add, okay, so review and update statutes and regulations relating to additional coursework requirement for associates, and the CEU requirements for licensees. Would that be clearer? Because I think the additional coursework requirement really is just, pinpoint for the associates, and then the additional requirements, I mean, the every renewal period, CEU requirements, now it's like we stack it all these things, and, for the licensees, and, even the 36 units may become very, there's very little wiggle room, for professional development because of that. So, I think I said it last Friday. I think Jenny Wong would be very happy, to take a look at this one, since he's the one who always, wants to give the licensees plenty of room to decide what their professional development is like. So will this additional language be helpful, Steve?
And just for an explanation for the newer board members, what we're talking about here is that there's additional coursework for some of the registrants or to get registrations or licensed. And what we were talking about here is really looking at what the additional coursework we're requiring right now, because it's been there for quite a long time. That stuff might be captured in the current education standards that are out there. So we're looking at kind of, are these really valid right now? And then the same with CEs, looking at the same thing. We've had the CEs out there that are required. Are they still, valuable? Do we still need to do that? Or is this something that everyone is doing, in their coursework and learning through that way? So that's what we're talking about here. So I like the addition, by the way.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I think it's an overhaul. Like I always say, it's an overhaul and a review of what the requirements, and to use the word that Deb probably have an opinion with. It's really about modernizing. So, but I think that review and update is actually, really accurate. So, yeah.
And this is Sarah. I just want to quickly interject just to make sure the rest of our board members, if they had any comments to add to those first 3 at all. Seeing head shaking and no raised hands. So I think it's safe to go ahead and move on.
Okay.
Do we have any further comments on number 4?
I see hand shook. I see Wendy shook her head. Chris Jones shook his head.
Okay. Do we have any comments for that 5th objective that's written there?
So, my question is that, there's a question mark. So, so Steve, can you actually also explain a little bit about the thoughts? Because, we know that, they're because of the history, because of, whatever the course content, the standard, the licensing standard, are never going to be completely aligned. And so we did a really, thorough job, from the supervision committee way back then, to really look at the whole supervision area and then also make some changes. So what is that particularly, that that suggestion is about?
Roseanne, do you have anything to say about this one?
All right, yes. I would argue that this particular objective, we already pretty much do this as we go along. And, you know, the obvious areas in law where it needs to be done have been taken care of. I don't like the word finish. This is not something that we're ever going to be finished with. It's a continual work in progress as bills get written and, you know, things Ledge Council might draft things that are slightly inconsistent. We're always working to make the law to perfect it and make it more consistent. But I don't know. I mean, to continue aligning the licensing standards, I can't think of anything that specifically really needs that's out of line that really needs to be as we find something or somebody brings something to our attention, we will continue to address that. But I don't know that it's really an objective. It's some years we might have something that needs to be aligned. Some years maybe not. It's kind of an as needed basis.
This is Sarah. I think Roseanne kind of just answered what I was about to interject with. Because this is kind of like a day-to-day, everyday task, we typically don't have these as objectives for strategic plans. This is something you're going to be continuously doing forever and ever. So it might be a good idea to just remove this objective entirely, since it's going to be something that you're going to always have to do no matter what.
Yes. So board members, considering what, Sarah has said, that's, so that right now, I think we can safely, right now, just kind of like delete it. And yet I also want to make sure that, we hear from the public. Maybe the public has something, very burning things to say, that really want to, align that part of it. So, before we completely just change it, can we, I think it's about time, to open the Q&A panel and listen to the public about that, about their comments.
Before we go to public comment, I just want to confirm with all the board members if there were any additional objectives that you would like to add in addition to these 4 that we have here. I see shaking heads.
I see Kelly and Evie shaking their heads.
Okay. In that
Great.
case, we'll go ahead and open up for public comment. All right, members of the public, at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. If you would like to make a comment for legislation and regulation, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. Or if you are connected by audio only, please click *3 on your device. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, that is amazing that everybody loves our strategic planning goal for the legislative part. Yay! I just, so this is good. So now I think, Sarah, go ahead and, what would be the next step in that sense? I think, deleting the number 5 is a good thing, right?
Okay, we had a strike through, but if you want me to completely delete it, we can.
I think, there's no public comments and I don't see that the board members have any objection. So I think legislative wise, 4 is already, pretty, I think it's very consistent with, what the board is planning to do anyway, because we do have a telehealth committee and we have a licensing committee. And so, to continue, my own thing is that I really hope that you guys can pick it up is the overhaul of the CEU. I think it's about time, to take a look at that. So I am happy, my objective is in. And you guys work, so I'm very, very happy. All right. So Sarah, what is the next thing then?
So next we'll be moving on to, organizational effectiveness. And the summary for this was on page 39 through 45 of your environmental scan that you got back a while ago. And then those raw comments were on pages 229 to 253. And we'll just go ahead and look at those suggested objectives. And if I can ask that we please go in the order that they're in and try not to jump around just to make things easier. So we'll go ahead and start with that first one.
Yes.
Any comments from any of the board members?
So board members, anything? Review current board structure to ensure that positions are aligned appropriately to ensure efficient operations and to foster upward mobility. Sounds good? Susan and then Kelly.
I just have a question. What does foster upward mobility refer to?
So I can this objective, I was looking at, I wanted to put this in there, as we've operated under kind of the same structure for the past 10 years. Kim and I had started a project of looking at how we kind of realign positions and kind of in the units and the teams. The other thing that we were looking at is we really want to be able to retain employees and have that knowledge keep going on up. So right now we have some instances where we're not able to really promote in, so people leave. So kind of looking at how we can actually restructure it so there's a gradual increase where we can, retain that talent and that knowledge, and give staff an opportunity to grow within the organization. So that's kind of what I'm looking for in this one.
So with that intention, do you think that, that statement reflects what Steve said accurately? Or, Susan, you have any question about that?
I might add the words "and to foster upward mobility among staff," because I didn't know what it was referring to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. We could we could wordsmith, but I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. So, Kelly, go ahead.
Steve answered most of my questions, but just looking at it, you could probably even remove the words aligned appropriately. So it would just read, review current board structure to ensure efficient operations and foster upward mobility among staff. But that's just wordsmithing. So I'll leave that up to Steve.
Can you maybe mark through this so we can see? Okay, that'll good. We can look at that.
Right. Any other board member feedback for number 1? This is actually a really good goal because I know Steve has, good vision, about how to, just basically, redo the structure. So right now, it's kind of a very silo, right? You have like a unit of enforcement, licensing unit, examination unit, admin unit, and then the administrative unit, or executive unit. And so how do you, actually, be able to do some cross training and restructuring? I think that is a really, really good goal. And so I think board members, as far as you like that direction, where it's going to help, improve the efficiency, that's great. Thanks, Wendy, to tell me to stop talking. Thank you. Okay, board members, any other feedback? Let's move on. Number 2. So collaborate with DCA to review internal processes and implement improvements to better serve the stakeholder and board.
And I can explain really quick.
Yes.
If that, can I jump in to just give a little explanation?
Please.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
so collaborate with DCA. This is something that we're kind of already doing with the Office of Improvement, or oh my gosh,
Organizational Improvement Office.
Organizational Improvement Office. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what we're there, and actually I might put that in there to clarify, but that we're looking at all our internal processes to see, mapping them out so we have a structure, we know what to look at, and what we can make actual changes to it. So I do want to have this is one of these selfish objectives that I want to put in there to show that we are working on stuff. This will keep us on track, and we can have this reported to the board on an annual basis. So on a quarterly basis.
That is actually really good. So if you add the OIO, by the way, looks like an emoji, and so I think that makes it a little bit clearer too, because it's not just about, then we know that, especially when you put the full name in there, then I think that would makes it even better. Because then, you really are talking about the efficiency, the internal processes. Okay. Board members, anything else? No, great. Let's move on to number 3. So, advanced transition to reduce the use of paper documents to promote environmental friendliness and reduce cost and processing times. Wow, yay. Susan and Wendy loves it. I'm happy. So, Susan, go ahead.
Well, I think the idea is perfect, but I would just, like Kelly may have said, I think I would just change the words a little to say, to reduce the use of paper documents, to reduce cost and processing times as we preserve the environment, or work to preserve the environment at the end. I put that at the end of the sentence.
Nice. So, anything else? Wendy, you want to say something about, your clapping?
Oh, um, I'll leave the wordsmithing. I think we all kind of understand the direction where this is going. I just am a big fan of being able to modernize our operations and really, kind of keep up with the times. And I think being able to submit documents electronically and receive documents electronically is a big part of that, and should help with some of our processing times, reducing the processing time goals that we have.
Yeah. So, we used to, receive like, for myself, the board packet in paper, and it's wonderful, but at the same time, I also feel very bad to kill the trees. And so now we, as at least for the board member side, everything is in electronic. And so that is a really, really good improvement. And so I think down the road, if you have never been to the office, we do have a room, to file all the paper file. And so somehow, how can you, whether you scan them or whatever, I think that would be a really good way for Steve and his staff to, to really come up with some great ideas. And so, environmental friendly, paper, reduce paper. Board members, what do you think? Chris say nod. Looks, Yvette nod, and Susan nod. Great. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Formalize a communication plan that will ensure quicker response to emerging concerns from stakeholders.
Wow.
I love it. Susan?
No, I just said, wow, because that's really important.
Yes. 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 Great. Board members, any other comments? No? Okay. Number 5, evaluate and make any necessary changes to the board's website to ensure that it is easy to navigate.
Can I make a suggestion, actually?
Of
Sorry.
course.
So this is one of those things, actually, I'm looking at it, and looking at it now, it is kind of a day-to-day operation. This is another one of those things where we're really kind of on a daily basis looking at that and making changes. So I'm thinking if I can suggest maybe doing away with this one, or that would be my plan.
Wendy?
I would tend to agree with Steve, and it may be captured under number 4 anyway, because any communications plan is going to consider the website as a communications tool.
Yes. 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 Yeah. Very good. Sometimes, whether it's a plan or a communication mechanism, so something like that, I think you can totally just incorporate, all these different ways, whether, it's website, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, or even phone call, So I think that's, yeah, I agree. Anybody else? You guys are easy. Oh my God. Or actually, Steve did a good job so that, we can make some quick decision. Wonderful. So we can, yes, we can probably, get that, strike it out for now, and then we can open up, for the public comments and, and then see, what the stakeholder thinks. Okay, number whatever. Next, identify and implement strategies to gain increased participation in board meetings from a wider group of stakeholders. So I think we learned from Zoom. We know that, that video conferencing is really good because I have never seen, such a vibrant, participation from all over, which is really great. So, so should we, keep that for the staff to continue explore how we can continue to increase the participations from a wider group of stakeholders. Steve, any supplements, supplemental information you want to give?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I know it's a concern and a concern of mine too. The more participation, the better. So I like having it kind of as a strategic goal. It's something that is definitely measured. I can just look right now and see the number of attendees that are on there. So I think, what our plans would be, I'm sure it'd be advertising. It would be, I don't know, reaching kind of outreach. So I mean, we'll be doing it anyway, but I do kind of like to have it as an objective so we can kind of, it's always that marker on the quarterly basis that I'll be reporting what we're doing with that. So.
Yeah, one of my thought is that, if you can encourage the more the educator, to really participate, that will be awesome. Especially, different school, have different, say, like accreditation standards, program standard, and they really are at the very beginning, of our, kind of educating our students, and then they come into like the field education, and hence that started the trainee, process, and, that the board may not have the formal jurisdiction, but, start to have the say. So yes, the role of the board is really important, for the educators. So I think that is a great thing, to add it on. So board members, any comments? Yvette and Chris? Yvette first. Yvette, can you unmute yourself, please?
You would think after 18 months of this, I'd know how to unmute myself.
We just forget.
Yeah. So I think a good thing to consider is maybe assigning a certain time period to a certain group and advertising that maybe at the beginning of a quarter or beginning of a year, so that when people are wanting to engage in a specific, like what you were saying, Christina, with the different entities, they can put it on their calendar in advance and attend. I know it's hard to plan so far in advance, but maybe you could just say, this group's going to go this time, this group, and then that way people have a schedule or agenda way in advance. And I think that really makes for planning easier, makes us look more organized, and that we're thoughtful about what we're wanting to talk about, and then it gives us time, to go out and actively invite people so that they become more engaged and become part of the stakeholder group. That's my recommendation.
Right. Absolutely. Good ideas. Very good. And Chris?
So just to kind of echo what Deborah was saying, when you talk about strategies to gain increased participation, is that something that we want to measure, or just kind of keep it general so that like, what does increased participation mean? And I mean, for me, it's not. I'm just curious as to kind of like how you want to benchmark that.
I think, I mean, I would see at the board meeting, I mean, attendance really is attendance at board meetings. I mean, we have a great collection of stakeholders that always show up, but beyond, without Zoom, you wouldn't really see many other people involved. So I think you can definitely, I could actually measure this. Whether, I mean, that's something that we should be doing anyway, I guess. So that's the other way to think about it. So I'm either or because we will be looking at that.
Yeah, my question is, does it need to be? I mean, it seems like
Yeah.
it'd be something that would be simple to, not simple to do, but it
No,
would
yeah,
be,
but
you know, can look up and see that data. So
Mhm.
good, thanks.
Susan, you raise your hand?
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do we let people know about the meeting just on the website, or do we send an email out, just a bulk email?
So we do social media. We post the meeting dates. We do, if people sign up for emails, they'll get an email if there's going to be a meeting coming up. We also do the website, but we don't actively. I mean, one of the things we could do differently is if there's a subject coming up, possibly actively, reaching out to certain individuals or certain groups to kind of really advertise a little bit more, in those certain groups to say, we're talking about this. You might want to come and join in. So, I mean, there's things we can do, I think.
Yeah. I think the most important thing right now also, is to, it's about the idea, whether, we should invite a wider group of stakeholders, and then the participation, and whether their participation in the meetings are worthwhile to make it a goal. And so I'm glad that Steve, really clarify a lot of the questions, so we can, I think I want to move on, and because I think we have one more goal, and then I want to, see if, the public has any more comments, because I think we have one more section, right?
This is Sarah. That is correct. I do see a hand raised from Deborah. And just real quick
yes.
before she goes, it's sounding like this. Which one is it? Number 5. Number 5 sounds kind of more like outreach, and I'm wondering if maybe you want to move it from organizational effectiveness and move it to the outreach and education goal area.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. In that case,
Yes.
at that point, Deborah, I'll let you add any comments that you want to add, and then we'll move that goal or objective to that goal area.
Okay.
Yes.
So and correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, but I thought there was some discussion that perhaps in the future, because of what has been said, especially by yourself and Christina, that the participation has grown exponentially since we've been on WebEx, Zoom, or whatever we started on. And isn't there some discussion that it could in the future continue? And so we would be able to see the sustained participation, because we don't have to fly to Sacramento to be engaged. Is that still something? I mean, isn't that? And I think that's fine to move it to the outreach, but I think that addressing what Chris said, maybe that's, you don't have to put it in there, but it's certainly something that I think in the future is going to happen.
Yeah, we're hoping. I mean, yeah, depending on what happens with, rules and regulations, and it probably will happen. I'm thinking everyone's looking at that hybrid type of model for meetings, and I think that may continue on. And just a note with putting it in outreach, I'm thinking, like you said, it really is just outreach. I'm almost, as you go through outreach, you'll see we do have, talk about engagement and such, I believe also in one of the objectives there. So, I mean, maybe you can put it in there, but maybe we don't even need it.
Okay. Very good. So, so Sarah, I'm glad that you're moving it, because I think, that would be a good way to also look at that, outreach, the goals, as one piece, how that if, how those goals will fit in with each other. So thank you. Let's see. Let's go to the last one, right? Develop a comprehensive board member onboarding process that will educate board members about board operations and their role. What do you think? you think is needed? I think right now we have the, the onboarding, the new member binder, and then every year we get a book for the legislation. But what do you think, Steve? You want to give some more,
So, I was
explanation
kind
and
of putting, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for talking over.
No,
I apologize. I'm kind of wanting to actually get rid of this one now because actually it's something that I'm looking at because you do have the onboard training through DCA. They do the new member training. But one of my concern is that I spend maybe about 3 hours with the board member going through a board manual. I think there could be a little bit more expanded. And that's something though I could put into play without really having it as a strategic objective. It's just kind of organizing meetings and looking at what we would want to do. But kind of, I think the thought there was to try to do something a little more comprehensive instead of just going through the board member manual once, maybe splitting that out into different sections, enforcement, licensing. So you have a better understanding of the board itself, because I think when you come into the job, you're not really understanding, not that you need to understand the nuances, but it helps to make decisions when you know some of the nuances of how the board operates administratively. So I think getting rid of it actually would be fine.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do board members think? Any feedback? Steve suggested to strike it. Kelly?
I think we can strike it. I think Steve and Max do a really good job, and you, Christina, as well, do a very good job onboarding our board members. And you can formalize it a little bit, but I don't necessarily think it needs to be a full-on strategic objective.
Okay. Any objections with Kelly's? I think this is fine. I think Steve, we can keep this, within your role, because it really, you are the contact. And so, and honestly, if you don't do well, they have other ways to get back to you. I don't think that we need to make it like, I'm teasing, but really, I think, the new board members onboarding really is it should be a pretty orchestrated effort, amongst all the other boards also. There's so many different layers. So the layers to, have the, to really help the board members to be up to par, and to have that clear understanding about their roles. So I'm with Kelly. I think it's okay to strike it. So, board members, any burning ideas to keep it? Nope, nope, or hesitant, ambivalent? Okay, so how about we just open it up for the public, and hear from them. Sarah, please.
All right. At the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment for organizational effectiveness, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. Or if you're connected by audio only, click *3 on your device. We'll go in the order that comments are received, and once you are unmuted, you'll be given 1 minute to speak. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests.
Do we see any?
It appears there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you. We must be doing a really good job. All right. So let's go back to, to the, just have a final look, just make sure that, that what we said that we would be doing, are, are able to reflect, the goal, the goal that, we mentioned. It's really about the efficiency and the effectiveness of the organization. So any other comments for that? If I didn't see any, good. So let's move to the next one, the last one, the number 6. Thanks, Sarah.
All right, so we'll be moving on to outreach and education. And we'll just, I suppose, jump right into those suggested objectives.
Nice.
All right. And then we did take that one from organizational effectiveness and put it down at the bottom there. But we'll go ahead and start with number 1. Do we have any comments or suggestions on this one?
So anybody like people, the board members like the language or like the idea, to create a more robust consumer and licensing education program through videos and social media campaigns? Did it capture? Did you see that? No letter, no paper. We go green, huh? So any feedback about this one? I see none. Everybody okay with it? About the outreach program? Okay, I see Chris nod and Susan nod. Everybody else are thinking that like a slow snow nod. All right, let's go to number 2. So that would be expand current communication plan and collaborate with entities that work with consumers to increase community outreach to underserved communities.
Oh,
Kelly?
okay. So I would take out expand current communication plan because I think it's sort of redundant. I mean, if you just make it collaborate with entities that work with consumers to increase community outreach to underserved communities, then you're expanding your communication plan in and of itself. So, and that sort of makes it a little bit more directed and and much more measurable. It's sort of a slam dunk for Steve. So I don't know if you guys see it the same way, but that's sort of where I'm reading it.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, what, when we reach out to the consumer, when we reach out to the underserved communities, then what? What is the outcome that we want to see? Is it about mental health expansion? Or is it about, some other goals? Kelly?
I would say it's about equity and inclusion. So you want to improve the inclusion of those underserved community members inside the process, inside the system of public safety within the mental health system. So and I'm not sure how you want to integrate that into number 2, but I think the first step is collaboration. But I think increasing equity and inclusion, it puts too high a mark, that would be impossible for someone to do inside of 6 years. But maybe improving communication or improving collaboration somehow with those members so that they're brought into the board's role and made part of the board's work.
Right. So yeah. So I like to, Chris, why don't you help? Can I ask your help? Because I think from the, mental health provider point of view, I think that, how do we word it so that, we can actually have a sense of the, that inclusion and the extension or equitable access, something like that, to really look at the outcome. I don't know. What do you think?
Um, I don't know. I think it's fairly clear as it is. With collaborate with entities that work with consumers to increase community outreach to underserved communities. I don't like the community in there twice, just as readability goes. Yeah, collaborate with entities that work with consumers to increase outreach to underserved communities. I think that clears or streamlines a little bit. Steve had his hand up.
Right.
Meeting now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
Wendy.
think that the measurable for us, because it would be hard for us to really just, if we're doing a good job or not. But I think for us, it's really the increasing outreach or even start doing some outreach like that is where I wanted to kind of gear that so we could actually see what we're doing that we haven't done before and we can actually gauge that. So
Is it about communities or is it about population?
popular.
Yeah, because community, you're talking about some localities, right?
Yeah. Population sounds probably better because we're trying to, everybody in California and trying to, work with them. Yeah, that's probably.
Right.
I see hands raised from Wendy and Kelly.
Yes. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, I feel like what it's missing for me is for what purpose. So we can outreach to them, but about what? For what purpose? Are we wanting them? Are we just wanting to increase overall engagement? Are there specific topics we want to make sure that they're included in? I just feel like it's missing the purpose. I think it's a hugely important goal. I just think we need to kind of spend a little time thinking about, kind of guiding Steve in a particular direction in terms of purpose.
Right. Kelly?
I think Wendy's right, and I think the purpose is ultimately inclusion. I think underserved populations and communities deserve a seat at the table, and ultimately the goal of increasing outreach is to bring them so that they're a part of the table where we're making decisions about them. So ultimately the goal is inclusion.
Okay.
Did we
Right.
capture that correctly? Okay, I see a head nod, so.
Yes. And Wendy? Okay. So Steve, what do you think? We refined it a little bit.
Yeah, no, and I think that I do like the the thought of what to do what, and then Kelly, that's definitely one. The other thing I was thinking about too is really, I mean, it's kind of goes with consumer education up on top too, is reaching out to kind of, I don't know if the right word is demystify what therapists do or can do for you, and demystify mental health assistance. So that was kind of, and that's maybe if I could wordsmith it a little bit more later on and bring that back to the November meeting, we can do that with inclusion and education. So.
Mm-hmm. Right. The equity and inclusion. Yep. Yep. Perfect. Yay. Thank you, Sarah. So let's move to number 3, increase board engagement with schools, training programs, public events, and relevant professional organizations to raise awareness of the board's role and activities. What do you all think? Like it? Thumbs up? Clear enough? Kelly?
I think that's perfect. That's a slam dunk.
So Kelly, you become, your sound. I don't know if it's me or is it your phone that I can't really hear you as clear as before.
I'm sorry, I was just saying it. I think that's perfect.
Yeah, thank you. How about the other board members? Okay, That one, it looks good. Okay. All right. So let's do, in that sense, no more comments from board members. Cool. Let's go to the next one. Review, update, and create informal publications to foster effective communication and reduce stakeholder confusion. Steve, Wendy, go first, and then Steve.
I was just going to ask for Steve to elaborate on that because I don't know what confusion you're trying to reduce.
I'm like, once again, I'm thinking maybe this is one of these, it's kind of on a daily basis, but I think, you know, we receive on a daily basis calls about interpretations on statutes, regulations, and are we doing stuff that can we do this, can we not? And we do our best with responding, but we never, and doing publications eventually. But I thought it's something where we kind of addressing some of those bigger questions in writing, in informal publications to kind of instruct the stakeholders or the licensees or the registrant about certain issues that might, you know, some certain issues that might pop up. That even makes it more nebulous. That you're like, what did he just say? So, I mean, maybe this is something that, I mean, we're always kind of striving for that, but I think it was kind of to say, you know, actually putting publications out there to kind of explains, at least explain and give a response to the like overriding questions that keep popping up on laws and regulations.
And Susan, go ahead.
Well, I found this one to be confusing because we said before we want to cut back on paper. And when I read this, when it says informal publications, to me, I think, oh, is that on paper? So maybe what we want to say is somehow or other, website will constantly be reviewed and updated to alert stakeholders on questions that may be confusing. I mean, that may be the wrong thing to say, but I don't want to say informal publications because it sounds like more paper.
I get, and I think when I guess we kind of, I take it for granted when I say publications, I don't even think we're going to print them out anymore. I think we're just going to throw them up on the web. So electronic publications might be a better term to use.
Yes.
Where people can print them. Suggestion now looking at this with one, I mean, maybe this does fit in with one. It's create a more robust consumer and licensing education program through videos, social media, and electronic publications. And then that kind of grabs, because that is basically what we would be kind of aiming at in that objective, is to educate, which is, you know, which would hopefully reduce confusion, or, you know, reduce confusion on licensing laws and stuff. So suggestion, maybe getting rid of 4.
Also, I think we can even combine it to say something like, you know, to keep, you know, consumers, or, you know, or, you know, to, you know, to dispense information, or, you know, about new changes and stuff like that. You know, that sort of like, you know, to disseminate. Yeah, to go ahead, Steve.
Maybe to ensure, or I mean, do that to ensure. What do we do to ensure understanding of the
New
board's
changes.
laws and regulations?
Laws, yeah, yep. And new changes, right? So there are changes all the time. Yeah.
I think that would go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So any other comments? Okay, looks good. And then I think the last one is about the one that we looked at before, identify and implement strategies to gain increased participation in board meetings from a wider group of stakeholders. So we talked about that, we want to, there are definitely ways to do it, and I think the board members probably should think about, that is it worthwhile to have more people to come, to have more stakeholders to come? In that sense, if it's, then, how do we do that? Then you know, I mean that, then if that is worthwhile to do it, then, we should then give Steve that, responsibility, to develop a plan. And so does that fit in this one? In this category about outreach? Seems fine, huh? Okay. Any other, discussion? Okay. Then maybe, Sarah, we can open it up for the Q&A.
Okay. Let me get that open. And I do have one person who already has her hand raised. So let me state the directions again, and then I'll immediately go to our person with the raised hand. But the Q&A feature is now open for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. And I see a hand raised from Leanna. And Leanna, I will be requesting to unmute your microphone. You'll be given 1 minute to speak. Please click that unmute me button when it prompts on your phone or your device.
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate all of you on the inclusivity that you've been talking about, like with associates. The only thing that, going back to Steve on number 4 about I went to an out-of-state school. I'm maybe updating more of the ones that are COMIF certified programs, because I did one with Capella, and things kind of got convoluted because I wasn't really sure how to do anything. I know it was during the pandemic, but through the attrition, I feel sorry for the person who was here earlier when they were looking for a 6-week turnaround. Mine was more like 8-week turnaround. So I do hope that works out. But I would like to address on the one with about license. I think the community needs to know the difference between an LCSW and an AM and an LMFT. I think they think they're the same person,
10
and they're
seconds.
not. But I really like all of your ideas. And when you do say about community outreach, we really could use it down here in South Central. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Leanna. So, so yes, all of day school. Yes, it's a real thing. So should we include that, in our strategic planning, as one of those stakeholders? Steve, what do you think?
What was the,
So,
I'm sorry, I'm like,
no,
what was the question?
it's really about like the inclusion of the out-of-state schools, like some of those private institutes, that they're not necessarily, they're like the new trend of the school, the
Yeah.
online school, where can we also include them, into one of those outreach programs?
I think hopefully you can hear me. I'm sorry, I'm having a little issues, but I can definitely, that would be with like kind of reaching out to the schools and the institutions, because we see that the schools that come through, and we can definitely do some outreach like to out-of-state schools and stuff. I think that's
Right.
definitely a very good point to make, and one that we would keep on that.
Yes,
That's good.
absolutely. Yeah. So
Um,
that
as
probably,
a,
go
this
ahead.
is Sarah. As a suggestion, we can put that in the notes and possibly add that as an action item when we work with the board on that. So then that way we kind of remember we want to include out-of-state schools on that.
Yes, yes,
So include out-of-state schools for outreach and board
yes.
engagement.
Okay, so thanks, Sarah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So in that sense, so maybe board members take a look at, in just kind of overall, these, now we're down to, 4 objectives, whether it feels okay with you for now, some wordsmithing, including the out of state school, delete that, the number 4. Does it seems okay? So silence is golden. Silence means thumbs up. Okay, that's my rule. Okay, awesome. So Sarah, now in that sense, we cover 4, all of the 6 now. So what would be the next step?
All right. Should be slide 55. There we go. All right. So let me update a couple of those numbers. My co-facilitator is updating those numbers. Just give her 1 second while she's doing that. I believe we have a total of 24 objectives.
Wow. Okay.
Just letting her
Yes. Yes.
double check those. Thank you, Elle. Oh, wait. Oh, we have 6 in licensing. I must have been off. In that case, that should be 26 objectives. Yep, 26. All right. So that's going to be and I think it was decided that this will be a 4-year plan that will go from 2022 to 2026. I'm going to confirm that with Steve. That's correct. Okay, he's nodding.
Well, that's what I mean, unless anyone wants to.
Strategic plans are typically anywhere between 3 to 5 years. If you believe 4 years is a good number to complete 26 objectives, that is totally okay. If you want to extend it to 5, that is also okay. All right, I'm seeing head nods. All right. So basically what our next steps are. Thank you. Solid will be drafting that strategic plan with all those objectives that we created. We'll be doing a little bit of wordsmithing on our end, and this will be given to the board to review. And then some additional edits can, mostly wordsmithing can be made then, or if there's objectives later on that you decide, no, we don't actually want that, you can remove them then as well. And then a draft version will be given to the board for approval. And then after that, the board management and staff will work on action planning, actually assigning steps on how to complete those objectives and kind of a 4-year time frame on how to do that.
Right. Good. Thanks, Sarah. So now I'm wondering, so Steve, in that sense, we should be able to see this final draft at the next board meeting, which is on November 4th.
It'd be November 5th, the day that we would look at this, but yeah, the board meeting will start on November 4th.
Right.
So,
So I'm wondering, so, then, so in that sense that November 4th meeting, then we will be anticipating to have a final approval. Or if not close, that it will be, basically looking at this draft, the final draft, and then see if, what the board likes to do. And I know your goal is trying to, to make it like, to have a final approval so that, you can start getting this done, as of like January 2022. Right?
and so what on the next board meeting, we will look at the draft, and then you'll give me direction on either to, there might be some tweaks that we have to do with it. Then you say, go forward, make those changes, and then we will put it into play as a final. We can consider that final, and then we can present it, start on it 2022. So
Very, very good. So, so in that sense, I think we went through all 6 objectives. And today, within like an hour and a half, we looked through 3.
thank you all.
I'm very happy, but at the same time, compared to last Friday, when we have such a robust public comments, it makes me a little bit thinking that and worried that we're not hearing enough from the public. But at the same time, this is also not the public agenda. I mean, I think we have completed the public comments. So, so I would also encourage, for those who are still on the call for the public, if you have any additional comments, feel free to contact Steve. This is a really good time that, to put your last effort, and to build on what the board members already, talked about. And I think that's about it, right? So, so Sarah, I think we can pretty much done with this strategic session.
Yep, I think our next agenda item is adjournment.
Okay, okay. Well, that is really wonderful. So I will go ahead and adjourn. So the time now is 2:35 p.m. And thank you all for attending. Very effective and very